I have Rob here, who's a sane person who's watched Attack on Titan. And so I'm going to pitch some theories that I've long held were either cut, like I think the author, not the show. I think the author cut at some point because like he just wanted to wrap it up. And I admit a lot of these theories maybe don't thematically move anything forward. There's a reason that they were cut, but I still think that it's all there.
Well, that's a better pitch than saying, oh, the show's bad. The show ended bad.
Yeah. The first one was that Armin was a rice and had the royal blood. I think he's the son of Yuri. I don't know if you remember Yuri. So there's Rod Rice, remember? That's Historia's dad. His brother. Remember Rod Rice wanted to become the founding, but he didn't get to. His brother got chosen.
Yeah.
That's Yuri. And Yuri looks exactly like Armin. Like, exactly. It's startling how close, how similar they look. And then, if you think about it, with Rod Rice, he had a secret child with Historia that he had hidden on a farm, and it was sort of a break glass in case of emergency situation if all his children died, which is what happened. And the reason that Historia didn't know that she was royal blood and special was because Frida Rice, which was Rod Rice's daughter, was the founding titan and wiped her memory. Armin could be the exact same situation. And in fact, Historia has a book about the outside world on the farm.
ごめんね、Historia。もう時間になっちゃった。今日も私のことは忘れてね。また会う日まで。
And Armin also has a book about the outside world. And they never explain where the book comes from, but it's the biggest mystery staring you in the face. They both have books with the exact same covers about the outside world. Yeah. They both look exactly the same.
これ、おじいちゃんが隠し持ってたんだ。外の世界のことが書かれてる本だよ。
外の世界の本だって？それっていけないものなんだろ？ケンペ団に捕まっちまうぞ。
そんなこと言ってる場合じゃないんだ。
In fact, at one point in the show, Armin dresses as Historia when they're avoiding Kenny's squad. Like, the author's telling you they look so similar that he could literally pass for her. That's all right in front of you, and then Armin's grandpa, which you only see like twice, looks nothing like him. Armin's parents are dead at the start of the show, and he says that they died trying to see the outside world, which means A, they knew about the outside world, but B, when they are torturing the Royal Guard in Season 3, Part 1, when they're doing the coup, and the Royal Guard goes over the people that he killed to maintain the King's peace, they show Erwin's dad, they show Historia's mom, and then they show an airheaded couple who are two blonde people in air balloons leaving. They never specify who that was, but they showed all the main characters' parents, and then there's two people who look exactly like Armin who are dying trying to see the outside world. It's all there, right?
この狭い壁の中でなぜ今まで戦争が起きなかったかわかるか。俺たち第一憲兵がこの汚い手で守ってきたんだよ。下手に利口な教師から空を飛ぼうとしたバカな夫婦も田舎の牧場にいたバイトも全部俺たちが消したから人類はやってこられた。感謝されて当然なんだ。
Right.
And then the final thing is, which this is more surface level. I mean, you could take it or leave it. But his colossal titan is bigger than Bertholdt's.
Oh, because of the royal blood.
Yeah, it's like he makes a bigger explosion. He's bigger. He's thicker.
Yeah,
like
I mean, I remember seeing that character and being like, why does he look exactly like Armin in the flashbacks, right? So I could see that being definitely the case. Armin's backstory in general is just a little bizarre. Yeah, see, I mean, honestly, when I watched the show, I was like, oh, this is...
time travel. I thought it was literally time travel or something.
Yeah, I agree.
With when Yuri first shows himself. And then, I mean, it's crazy. I can
that terrible bowl cuts genetics, so...
Yeah. They all have the bowl cut. I think he cut it because he later had the plot line about Eren needs Zeke to touch the royal blood to activate all the powers, and so he realized that if Armin was royal blood, that would mess that up, and he didn't necessarily need it. I thought it would have been brilliant had you made him a rice and then had him die. So like, we had the guy right there, and now we need Zeke, and interesting, you get that constant feeling of, oh, if only Armin was here, we'd have him.
Or they go through, even funnier would be, Armin and Eren go through the whole thing to try to get the royal blood and the matching and all that, and then Armin dies in the quest for it, and then right after it's like, oh, Armin could have been Armin.
Yeah. I honestly think that one is true.
Yeah.
These other ones I think fit, but that one, I straight up believe if I ever got the author drunk at a bar and I was talking to him, I would press him on that. I know you cut that shit. Don't lie to me. Okay. The next one, we were talking about Annie, and the reason I thought it was weird they show her backstory, and then it doesn't really move the plot. I think the original reason that he had written that backstory stuff and planned on it was because Annie is a Tiber. Do you remember who the Tibers are? They're the family in Marley that has the Warhammer.
Oh, okay.
Okay, right? So here's my case. We'll start on the surface level. She looks exactly like all of them. They're all like blonde hair, blue-eyed Tibers. She's from Marley, so we'll start there. The next stuff is that when they show Annie's backstory, they show her dad finding her as a baby outside this massive estate. And when the kids, at the start of season 4, the Marleyan kids, they talk about how the Tibers are the only people in Marley that are allowed to have an estate that's that big. And it's just in the background, so I'll show you right here.
あの島の脅威を強く世界に知らしめなければならない。物語には語り手が必要だ。それをタイバー家が引き受けてくれるそうだ。
潜水の巨人を管理するタイバー家？しかし、広い土地で優雅に暮らしてきたタイバー家が今更出てきて英雄を気取るなんて虫が良すぎませんか？
気持ちはわかるが、タイバー家も祖国マーレを憂いているんだ。
どうでもよかった。私は生まれて間もない時に親に捨てられた。母親の浮気相手がエルディア人だったとかでね。そんな私を収容所で引き取ったのは外国から来たエルディア人の血を持つ男。
よう、ジョーちゃん。こんなジジイをつけ回したなかなか男を見る目があるようだな。
私は旅籠で生まれた。そこで働く母から父親の話を聞かされて育ったから一目で分かって。
そりゃ感動的だな。パパにハグしてほしければまず両手を上げろ。
絶対にないと言い切れるの？
妹に誓ってねえな。そいつは俺が一番笑えない冗談だ。
That's her as a baby. Massive estate right behind her, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little...
It's outside the gates of the estate. It's not even, like... And then, final thing. When Eren is fighting the Warhammer Titan, what does the Warhammer Titan do? Do you remember? And then, where is Annie when they fight her?
どうした？
なんだ！融合してる！
Become a crystal.
She makes a crystal! It's like the exact same thing. And then these two will fit together for the last part of my thing. But okay, so that's my case for Annie's as a Tiger. Okay, now this is the final thing that will tie those two together. Okay, so Do you remember? Every time I say "Do you remember," I feel so bad because the show's been so long since you've watched it. But I needed a sane person who's not autistically into the show. Okay. Do you remember in season 4 when they're the head of the Tiber, Willie Tiber, is giving his speech to the world?
Yes.
They attack him, and he goes through all the history, and he says the Tibers actually were not great heroes. We worked with the king of Eldia to subvert the founding titan and steal it. And then we would split up, and that's how we established this peace, right? That fits exactly together with the Rice family being in charge of Eldia. Remember, in Eldia, in the first 3 seasons, there's a fake king, and then there's a secret royal family, the Rices, running it.
Right.
Who actually have the founding titan.
Yeah.
Then, Marley, there's a secret royal family who has the Warhammer Titan and technically has influence of the other Titans, secretly running Marley.
Yeah.
So they're working together.
Yeah.
If Armin is a Rice, let's say, and Ione is a Tiber, and they work together to stop Eren, it's like a whole history repeating itself angle.
Yeah.
I always thought that's why he had so much detail about that. I think he just cut it later, but.
Yeah, I think everything becomes so heavy family based.
It's funny because for the first 3 seasons, until the basement, you're just thinking you're watching like a show. I don't know. And then all of a sudden, in the basement stuff, it's like the royal family walks in and stuff. It becomes like full epic fantasy.
Yeah, with just with competing families and stuff. Yeah.
But I mean, that's the stuff I love. But
yeah.
Anyway, so that's the big one I had. Was basically tying those 2 backstories into the big plot.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, but I think he cut it. More.
Yeah.
Because, like I said at the start, you don't need this stuff, right?
Yeah, and I think in that case, if you had gone down that route, the criticism would have been like, these characters are just, just thrust into these royal family roles, all of them. I mean, when we just thought at the beginning they were just nobodies, and people do not like that. Suddenly, all these characters become royal family members, so...
I know, but it's such classic fantasy when there's royal... Like, it's like my favorite thing, one of my favorite things about reading epic fantasy stories is secret princes and princesses and stuff like that. I love that stuff.
I think with the Annie stuff too, you would have to ask why did the Tibers get rid of her?
I think they weren't even aware of her.
Right, eventually. But then that kind of all plays into... That could have been interesting from a story perspective, but it just wasn't pursued. I always thought Annie's father looked nothing like...
I mean, not even close. Like,
right.
It's made a point that he doesn't, but that's because it's not actually her.
It's not actually her dad.
I think it's Willie or another member of the family. I think he cut it. I actually think it was a good idea to cut it, but nonetheless, I believe it to be true. Okay. The only thing remaining. So, this is something that I would be amazed if you remember correctly. Like, it would be crazy, because this is something that I think the TV show may have just done, and that's why they weren't thinking about it. But when Eren and Zeke go into the paths in season 4, right? And they interfere with the events of when Grisha kills the Rices in the cave, remember? When that episode ends, they get kicked out of the paths, and Eren says, "We haven't even gotten to the part where I eat Dad yet." Do you remember this line? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My theory was that there is something fishy about the scene when Eren eats his dad. And he really sets it up like it's going to be important because they're going through the paths with Eren and Zeke. They interfere with Grisha killing the royal family. And then, remember, later that day, Grisha goes and gives the Titan to Eren. Remember, he goes, "Zeke, you must stop Eren." And then later gives Eren the Attack Titan.
Yeah.
Why would he do that? That's a huge plot point. Huge thing. And my theory basically is that there was 2 timelines. So the first timeline is the one that you're shown, which is super bloody and stuff.
この鍵、これは。
In Keith Sadie's, who's the guy who trains Aaron, the bald guy, there's that one episode where you get his backstory, right?
Mm-hmm.
And through that episode, you find out his backstory that he knew Aaron's mom and blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so when he finds Aaron in the woods,
雷。そして私は気絶していたお前を避難所の寝床に戻した。
it's completely peaceful. There's no blood. There's nothing. Aaron's sleeping completely peacefully by himself. But the first time you see that scene in the show in season 1, and they show Aaron eating his dad, there's blood everywhere. There's a gigantic skeleton. And the arm, make a point of showing the arm, he's holding glasses. Then when Sadie's finds him, there's no glasses, there's no arm, there's no blood, there's no gigantic skeleton. And if you think about it, Historia gets memories from the farm. When Aaron gets the memory, this memory, it's when they're in the cave and Historia touches his back. And Historia gets memories from the farm. That's like a whole thing. And he gets memories from this. But this does not line up. This is all bloody and fucked up. This does not line up with the account of somebody in the world.
Yeah.
So, and he was doing all this timeline stuff, so I always thought, big.
That's the diverge.
Yeah, that was a big thing, because the cave, everyone gets different memories. And I think what happened basically is Historia and Aaron get an alternate memory, memories from an alternate timeline where Aaron didn't interfere. And then when you see his dad interferes, that's the whole... Or when Aaron interferes with his dad, that's the other timeline that they're currently living, basically.
It's certainly an interesting idea. I mean, that would have been really... It would have been a lot better from an Aaron character perspective if he changed the timeline either for the better or for the worst. But oh man,
It's too complicated, right?
It's just it's too complicated. I feel like I can see why that would be cut potentially.
I think that, like I said, this is the one where I think legitimately the author or the production team just weren't thinking about it on this level of detail, right?
No.
They just had two different accounts of the scene when they made it two different times.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting that when they touch each other in the cave and they get memories, Historia gets a memory from the farm. Aaron gets a memory of him eating his dad, and it's all fucked up. And then later in the same season, you find out Sadie's backstory of when he found Aaron. It's completely different.
Yeah.
He even remarks about how peaceful Aaron was sleeping there.
Yeah.
If you think about it, Grisha, his motivation doesn't line up to give Aaron the attack titan at that point, when knowing what we know.
Yeah, I'm certainly...
It's a fun theory, I think.
It's a theory, yeah. The story implications of something like that, I mean, it was obviously cut, right?
Yeah. My point is that I think these things was cut, but I think they were there, and he decided, probably wisely, to not do that.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
I think the sad part, too, is we always kept hearing the story is finished. He knows how it's gonna end. He knows he knows what's gonna happen. And if that was truly the case, now we're in retrospect going, he cut X, he cut Y, the characters didn't make sense in the end, right? So
yeah, I think he had a lot of things planned, but not everything.
Yeah, and maybe he just became tired of writing the manga, maybe.
Probably. It does just and you do get the sense where he's like, I'm wrapping this shit up.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. It's a damn shame, but what are you gonna do?
Okay, and then this is a plot hole that I have a solution for that I think is more interesting.
Okay.
But okay, remember at Shigashina, which is the battle at the end of season 3?
周囲を見渡せ他の敵を捕捉し
They get surrounded.
Yeah.
Did you ever wonder how they all ride into Shigashina Wall Maria? They run in, and then they get surrounded by like 200 Titans. How?
How did they get surrounded?
Yeah. Because they all transform, so it's not like they're Titans who showed up. Zeke makes them all appear. So how does he do it?
Oh.
But it's not like the theory on Reddit, which is wrong. Not wrong, but it's kind of lame, and it's never been confirmed. It just seems to be what everyone thinks is that there's like one, as they're riding the horses in, there's like one tiny thing in the corner that's like a pipe, and they think it's breathing tubes. Like he buried people underground with breathing tubes, and then made them appear. But I think that's bullshit. I think that's just stretching.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a plot hole, right? I don't know.
I have a solution for it that makes more sense in my opinion.
Okay, what is that?
You know how the big plot mechanic in the last season is that Zeke is royal blood. And if he touches somebody who's a Titan, they can activate the royal powers of that Titan, right? In season 3, in that battle, Zeke starts off as a person. He's not in Titan form, right? And the cart, which is Peak, is in Titan form already.
Mm-hmm.
Remember? Because she's the one who's transporting things, and she gives the scouting warning, and she's in Titan form. So wouldn't it make sense if he touched her, and they used the cart power to teleport a bunch of people that they had set up, because it's the cart, and it can transport, and it would be a little setup for the thing that happens later? I think it's like something he maybe either didn't think about or had set up and then realized that you just don't even need the setup. You could just do this later.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this stuff is like...
I can't tell if I'm doing the writing for him.
Well, I think the show presented itself as things happen, things get explained later, and then in the end, a lot of things just were really never... True. If it's not explained, it becomes just a plot hole.
True. I would say, though, that in general, that was true. I think the show did a great job of questions that it begged, it did answer. But this is not something that like anyone thought about. It never begs the question, right? There's no part where Armin is like, "How did they get all these people here? There must have been some trap," or
Sure.
They just kind of accept that they're surrounded. The show never begs the question. I always wondered, how did he do that?
Yeah.
So that was my last theory. So which ones did you agree with? Any of them? Which ones did you agree with?
I thought the family one was the strongest.
From Armin?
In Annie.
Okay.
The other one, the time travel one, I thought was too far out there.
Yeah, it's not exactly time travel. There is time travel in the show because we see Eren interfering with past events. So it's just that if he had never interfered, this is what the timeline was. And if he did interfere, that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, it would...
That's all I'm saying.
A diverging timeline would have been... could have smoothed out a lot of the things I didn't like about the last season, but it would have made other parts probably more difficult. And conceptually, it's hard to follow a dual timeline, right? So...
I mean, I think you're seeing one timeline the whole way. All I'm saying is that the timeline we see is the one where Eren is interfering with it.
Sure.
So when they touch each other, they get to see a timeline where Eren never interfered, basically. You see what would have happened.
Sure.
But anyway, those were my theories that I've been sitting on for a very long time and never had anyone to talk to it about.